Good evening. I'd like to call the February 2nd Tacoma Public Schools Board of Directors business meeting to order. Let's begin with a flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. A roll call, please.
President Catherine Ushka.
Here.
Vice President Andrea Cobb.
Here.
Board Member Debbie Winskill.
Here.
Board Member Scott Hines.
Here.
And Board Member.
I'd like to note that Director Vial has been excused. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move adoption of the agenda for this evening.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. Number 5 on our agenda is the recognition of staff, students, and community. First item, item 5-1, recognition of the Gold Star Community Partner and award to Eloise's Cooking Pot Food Bank.
Good evening. It is my pleasure, as Amanda Scott Thomas, the Director of the Community Partnership Office, to do the Gold Star recognition. We have 2 this evening because we didn't have one or present one in December. So for December, we are presenting or recommending the presentation of the Gold Star Community Partner Award to Eloise's Cooking Pot. And so as we know, Tacoma Public Schools defines partnership as a cooperative relationship between students, families, schools, the school district, and the greater Tacoma community. Partners are committed to supporting student academic success and the success of the whole child. Partners work with and invest in the education of our children and youth whose future, in turn, will affect the quality of life in the entire Tacoma community. When it comes to student success, TPS recognizes that schools cannot do it alone, and in recognition of an investment of time, talent, and resources for TPS students, families, and staff, the Gold Star Community Partner Award signifies honor and thanks to a community partner who has made a difference by doing what's best for kids. Eloise's Cooking Pot Food Bank provides quality food to the communities of East and South Tacoma, Washington. Andrea, the founder, was concerned about the children in these communities who were not eating on a regular basis. Due to her family's experience with economic hardship, she understood this. Without government assistance, Andrea began delivering food to her tenants in the area. This is how the Food Foundation for Eloise's Cooking Pot Food Bank began. In 2010, Eloise's Cooking Pot fed over 33,400 people, providing over 836 pounds of food to the people of East Tacoma. In 2011, the demand increased, and they served over 85,700 and provided over 1.3 million pounds of food to the community. In 2012, they served 86,600 clients, providing more than 790,000 pounds of food, whereas in 2013, they served clients over 973,000 pounds of food. In 2015, as of October, they had served 80,000 clients. They have provided millions of pounds of food. In conjunction with providing food from the 4 basic food groups, they provide ethnic food, household products, pet food, baby items, as well as weekly home deliveries provided to seniors and disabled citizens. The food bank is named after Andrea's grandmother, Eloise. Eloise was a woman of humble means, but would generously share whatever food she had by providing a hot meal to anyone who was in need. Eloise's Cooking Pot also provides professional cooked meals to the homeless. On every 5th Sunday, Eloise's Cooking Pot staff food bank, along with local executives, chefs, and volunteers, prepare a hot meal and serve over 100 clients, staff, and volunteers of the Matt Talbot Center located in Seattle, Washington. The food bank also has a garden which produces fresh food and herbs. The garden is located at Trafton and Railroad in Tacoma. This project was developed to provide stable internal source of fresh foods for the clients. It's managed by volunteers, and these volunteers prepare the land for cultivation, plant seeds, weed the field, and harvest the food throughout the growing season. Once the food is harvested, it is immediately available to clients. The clients receiving this food are being provided with a source of fresh organic produce that is nutrient-rich and locally grown. The food bank has provided Lister elementary families with 50 complete Thanksgiving meals this past holiday. The meals included turkey, vegetables, nuts, berries, breakfast items, and much more. The food bank delivered the box meals to our school and helped carry all 50 very large boxes into the building. Without the generosity of Eloise's cooking pot, over 10% of Lister's family would have gone without this past holiday season. We believe their generosity and compassion and dedication deserves recognition. And they were nominated by their family liaison, Linda Burley, and I'm gonna ask everybody that is associated with the food bank to stand up, and Andrea and Tanzania to come forward, please. Can we give them a round of applause? Here is your award, and you can say a few words.
I'm Andrea Blue, the president and CEO of Making a Difference Foundation, and Eloise Cooking Pot is actually one of our programs. Tanzania Ramsey is actually our food bank manager that handles the day-to-day operations. As she was reading that, I'm just in awe, because literally Eloise Cooking Pot was started based on 2 children in East Tacoma not eating. And now it's now the 3rd largest food bank in Pierce County with the #1 delivery system. So I'm just in awe of what God has done with a short period of time with Eloise Cooking Pot. As of 2006, our food bank has served over 110,000 people. In 2016, giving out 1.5 million in food. Of that, 40% of those numbers belong to seniors who are unable to actually access food at the food bank. For everybody here, I'm sure you guys know that Eloise Cooking Pot is located in what we consider to be a food desert. There is no grocery store within 2 miles of that particular area. So the clients have really grown to appreciate the service in which we provide there is much needed. So on behalf of our organization, and being able to serve Lister was a no-brainer for us. She called, and we're like, absolutely, we'll bring food over to your kids. But thank you guys for recognizing us. We really, truly appreciate it. Everybody can make a difference in someone's life, and we just really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so enormous work. Thank you so much.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Moving on to agenda item 5.2, recognition of Gold Star Community Partner Award to Sulya Warnick. Solja.
Soldier.
Thank you.
So we have our January recognition, and I'm going to read this very robust nomination. It deserves recognition just like the other, and so I'm excited about Solja. She is a native of South Korea, and she received her BA in English Literature from a women's university and did graduate studies in South Korea. Her teaching certificate was earned through the Seattle Pacific University. Solja serves as an ESL teacher in TPS for 30 years. She was here for 30 years. More importantly, Solja has been committed and passionate, a community leader and supporter of students and families during the past 4 decades. Shortly after her arrival in Tacoma, Solja helped found the Korean Women's Association to help offer emotional and social support to a small group of Korean wives of American servicemen in 1972. Since that time, Solja has contributed significantly to the community in multiple ways and has helped develop the Korean Women's Association into one of the largest social service agencies in the state. Today, KWA offers a broad range of coordinated multicultural services to over 150,000 clients in 11 counties. Solja was the primary catalyst to promote and assure the Korean language and culture courses be taught as world language in our school system. In 1995, Soldier made a suggestion for us to explore the possibility of offering Korean language classes for our students due to an increase of the Korean community presence locally, as well as the explosion in overseas trades with many South Korean businesses. We accepted hers and the community's wise recommendation, and Korean language and culture courses were instituted in Tacoma Public Schools in the fall of 1995. In 2008, when our district was experiencing dire budgetary constraints, Soldier effectively led a drive to raise funds to help sustain the Korean language and culture program, and as a result, TPS School Board was presented with a check for $36,500, allowing us to continue the Korean language program at both the middle and high school levels. Today, Korean language classes are available at Baker, Geodrome, Foss, and Mount Tahoma High School. Since the inception of the Korean language program, Soldier, through her efforts with KWA and the Korean Consulate in Seattle, has been an invaluable partner to the district. Soldier has assisted in the implementation of culturally relevant and appropriate approaches towards teaching our Korean students and understanding their community. Soldier has arranged field trips for our non-native speaking Korean language students to visit many Korean cultural sites. These opportunities help introduce students to the taste, spirit, style, and uniqueness of the Korean culture. Many of these students can now feel more comfortable in interacting with local Korean businesses, neighbors, Korean students, and communities. These experiences also stimulate students' interest in becoming more enthusiastic about visiting Korea and being engaged in all things related to Korea, its people, its language, and culture. Through her efforts, our school district has been able to forge close relationship with the Korean Consulate in Seattle and several school districts in South Korea. Additionally, every other year during the past 15 years, Soldier has ensured the subsidization of costs to allow 20 students and several Tacoma board members and principals to visit Korea for 2 weeks in the summer. Then in the subsequent winter, TPS would host 20 Korean students and their school officials in Tacoma for a reciprocal visit for up to 2 weeks. Many of our students benefited from Soldier's excellent teaching and devotion while she was a teacher. These benefits continue through the years, even after her retirement. Besides being a founding member of KWA, Soldier has served on numerous boards and commissions, including the Governor's Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs, the State of Washington Superintendent of Public Instruction Education Reform Think Tank, the Multi-Care Health Foundation, and most recently, the Foundation for Tacoma Schools. So the Community Partnership Office recommends the Board of Directors recognize Suljik Warnett as being awarded the Gold Star Community Partner Award for the month of January. Suljik, can you come to the front, please? And I just want to say this nomination and your good work was brought to our attention by our director of ELL, Manan Hodge. So she nominated you, and we just thank you for the work that you've done in our community.
Wow. Wow, thank you. I didn't do all this by myself. I'd like to introduce my KWA group out there. I have Executive Director Troy Christensen, Chair of the Board, and then the Chair of the Volunteer, and my husband Fred Warnick there. Thank you. I just don't want to, enjoy whatever that work I did for the community. I really enjoyed it, and because I'm doing it because I really enjoy myself. So, but this kind of a word recognition really make me feel bonus enjoyment, and thank you so much for school board members and Carlos Centeno, Joshua, and especially Minan Haji, Global Education Director. And I'll continue this, my whatever token of volunteer work until I can, the way I can do. So thank you again, and I'm very proud of what the Tacoma School District is doing for the graduation rate and particularly global education. It's very, very successful, and whole world is going to be a global family, and that's so appropriate. And then thank you again. Thank you, Carla, Joshua.
I would like to mention that we forgot to say that Soja last year received the equivalent of the Medal of Freedom from her president in South Korea.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to celebrate the stars of our community who have partnered with the school district over the years. It's only through community that we get the good work done well. So thank you to everyone. And moving on to item number 6, which is members of the public wishing to address the board. School board members encourage public participation, and your input is appreciated. If you'd like to address the school board, follow these steps. Complete a citizen's request to speak card, which is located at the back of the auditorium. Submit the card to the school board secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Cards submitted after public comment period has ended will not be considered at this session. The superintendent will call your name when it's your turn to address the school board. Please speak into the microphone. You'll have up to 3 minutes to share your comments. And just so you know, I think you get a bing when you have 1 minute left and a bing when you have 30 seconds left. Thanks.
So we have quite a few people that are going to speak about community gardens. So I'm going to start with the other 2 speakers, and then we'll go into those folks that are talking about community gardens. So I'd like to start with Atzlan Ramirez, who's going to talk about Next Move internship program. And that'll be followed by Monique Letourneau, who's going to speak around safe zones resolution.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Aslan. I'm a senior at Mount Tacoma High School. I'm here to speak about the Next Move internship program. Before I took part of the Next Move internship program, I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew is I wanted to work in a dental office. I didn't know what school I would have to apply to, what it would take, what path to take, just in general. And through this program, I had the opportunity to intern with Dr. Hanula at 6th Avenue Dental. There I shadowed 2 hygienists and 2 dentists, including Dr. Hanula. There I really got to know what they did on a daily basis, how they interacted with patients. Really got to know them. I spoke to them on a one-on-one, and I saw what they struggled with, or I heard what they struggled with and what they had struggled with their education and what schools they went to and what path they took. And coming out of the Next Move internship program, I now have a plan, and I plan on I already applied for Eastern Washington University, and that's the university I want to go to become a dental hygienist and a future dentist.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Monique Letourneau.
Good evening, Superintendent Santorno, Deputy Superintendent Garcia, Board President Ushka, and members of the school board and community. My name is Monique Letourneau, and I'm a teacher at Lincoln High School and member of Teachers United. I'm proud to work with our Eastside students, and in particular our immigrant and refugee students and families. I'm here as a teacher and Teachers United member to speak in favor of the board's resolution to support immigrant students and this week's statement that Tacoma Public Schools are safe zones for immigrant students. Thank you for your announcement this week that as safe zones, we protect students' citizenship and immigration status and provide a private in-school location for students to receive support and assistance on immigration law enforcement. Thank you for providing the statement on the website in 5 other non-English languages, as well as in a phone call to families. Thank you for your responsiveness and leadership on this issue. I understand that a meeting was convened this morning to provide school counselors information to consult and assist students who request support, and I have a few requests for clarity and feedback on the resolution and implementation plan based on what I know. First, please include language for our approximately 30 refugee students to be named and included in that program. Please include a process for potential immigrations and customs enforcement or ICE raids in the implementation plan. Today I heard it was expressed at the meeting that ICE can't come onto school campuses, but we are in unprecedented times where it is possible that federal agencies could start entering campuses. If that were to happen, what steps will be taken to protect students from ICE as well as law enforcement agencies? Los Angeles Unified School District has board language on a resolution for this particular issue. Please provide all school staff members with specific Know Your Rights materials for immigrant and undocumented students. Ensure that Safe Zone counselors distributed updated materials such as those on Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals or DACA. Please adhere to current immigration law recommendations which have recently changed and refer students to knowledgeable and trustworthy resources on programs such as DACA so that students can make an informed and safe decision with their information. I have one more request that I'll include in the statement that I hand to you. And again, thank you for your leadership on this issue. As a teacher, I look forward to helping progress the plan for this resolution so that our immigrant and refugee students are safe, protected, and supported. Thank you.
Speaking regarding school gardens, Katie Greeley, followed by Daniel, I think it's Muir.
Hi, my name is Katie Greeley. I'm a parent in the Tacoma Public School District. And this kind of is about, in response to a memorandum that was recirculated about not eating produce grown on school grounds, and also bringing up school gardens as an equity issue. So Tacoma Public School District wants to be seen as an innovative and equitable one. Good district policies should encourage student engagement and enrichment, as well as increase opportunities for parent and community involvement. I know through experience at Bryan Elementary and at Tacoma Community College and in the Franklin Pierce School District that school gardens can encourage all of these things. There are lessons vital to a comprehensive curriculum at all grade levels, including the water cycle, the seasons, ecology, climate, biology, physics, local history, and too many more to name, that can be more effectively taught in context. If a school is lucky enough to have staff, parents, and community members put time and effort into creating and maintaining school gardens, this should be encouraged and not blocked. Most of the families served by Tacoma Public Schools do not own the homes they live in. They rent. They move from apartment to apartment. Often these students have economic and opportunity disadvantages. They do not have access to open spaces or gardens in their home lives. Their guardians may be Black or single or Latino or queer or Asian or English language learners or atheists or religious minorities or immigrants or refugees, or they may have disabilities. Some parents are afraid to get involved at school because they don't feel they have anything to offer academically. But at the Bryant Garden, I worked with volunteers from all of these groups. Many of their children did their science projects at no cost using the lessons and resources available through their outdoor classroom. If you are worried about exposure to pesticides, please stop using them. Probably stop using them anyway. If you are worried about soil contamination, please test the soil and get it remediated. If you are worried about allergies and other liabilities, look to the waiver systems you already have in place, such as those for field trips or hot lunches. This is not Mississippi or Missouri or Montana. This is Tacoma, Washington. Please develop a clear and science-based policy that increases opportunities in outdoor education instead of decreasing them. Thank you.
Daniel Muir, followed by Jenny DeMars.
Good
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Daniel Muir, and I'm a member of the Pierce County Ag Roundtable and also a member of the board of directors of the King Pierce Farm Bureau. I'm here today to talk about Farm to School Pierce County team and our goal to have local school districts adopt farm to school programs. I'm the coordinator of the Farm to School Pierce County team. We have a diverse group of stakeholders that have come together with the common goal of implementing farm to school in Pierce County. The group consists of institutional representatives such as WSU Extension, Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, Washington State Department of Ag, and farmers market managers. Our group also has diverse representation of parents and PTA members from multiple schools and also includes teachers. Earlier today, I was in Olympia speaking before the House Education Committee in support of House Bill 1508, in which part would provide funding to the WSDA Farm to School programs. Our purpose and intent is to put together funding to hire a consultant and a contractor that would support farm to school in some pilot school districts across Pierce County. The consultant would work to meet the needs and support the current assets and strengths of the school districts to strengthen farm to school purchasing. This could include beginning or expanding food purchases for Taste Washington Day, monthly taste tests, the fresh fruit and vegetable program, the daily salad bar, and other programs. The consultant and partner agencies could also support school districts with education, awareness building, and promotion of school district farm to school program with the schools and in the greater community. The benefits of farm to school is to educate eaters about local farming and food systems, to increase local produce offerings in school meals and salad bars, to improve student nutrition by creating excitement and education around unfamiliar but locally grown produce, and to build community relationships and increase participation rates for school meal programs, increase the market opportunities for our local farms, and support local farmers and the economy. To help achieve this, we asked the Tacoma School Board develop a fair and consistent policy to allow for the consumption of locally produced foods in schools. As I said, we have a diverse team, and many members would be willing to contribute their experience and expertise if the board would so request it. Thank you.
Jenny DeMars, followed by Brandy Yanez Riddle.
Hello, my name is Jenny DeMars, and I'm the garden educator at Lowell Elementary. I'm also a WSU trained master gardener. Lowell and its community has been supporting school gardening for the past 20 years or so. For years, students would grow food and harvest it, and then they'd be able to enjoy fresh carrots or peas right from the garden. When I took over the garden from the previous educator, she told me how much teachers and students enjoyed making pesto in the fall, and I was a little skeptical when I went into my first class with my basil and garlic and thinking, no way are 7 and 8 year olds gonna wanna eat pesto and crackers, and sure enough, they all tried it, and a lot of them actually enjoyed it, and those that didn't enjoy it, they pretended to enjoy it because they were with their peers, which is a big deal. The days following that, I had so many parents come and ask me, how did you get my kid to eat some pesto? And the truth is that school gardens are a gateway to learning healthy nutrition. The harvest is where the magic happens. Unfortunately, shortly after that, I was told that students could no longer eat from the garden, and that was due to a policy change with the district. This is sort of disappointing, well, totally disappointing, because it just isn't fun for kids to learn about growing vegetables when they don't get the ultimate reward, which is tasting them. I think it's crazy that we tell kids they can't try kale or some other green when we know they're very unlikely to try it at home. And it's a missed opportunity when we are too scared of legalities. For the past year, I've been working around the policy trying to engage kids in other gardening curriculums such as pollinator gardens, native plants, environmental stewardship, but it never fails. They inevitably ask, what do I get to eat? And there's not really a good answer to it. Then, well, you can pull the carrot and then go home and ask your parents to get some carrots. So I'm here tonight because I believe a school district as innovative as Tacoma should be a champion for school garden education. We need a policy that makes sense, that's district-wide, and follows the approved USDA school garden safety guidelines. I've brought with me some literature from both the USDA and the WSDA on how to safely consume school garden produce. There are districts throughout the state that are not only sampling produce, they're serving it in their cafeterias. I had a representative from the Washington State Department of Agriculture tell me that he could put us in contact with other districts that are implementing such policies. We just need to put the wheels in motion and find a path forward. Thank you.
Brandy Yanis Riddle, followed by Lilith Peary.
Hello, my name is Brandy Yanis Riddle. I'm a parent of a student at Lowell Elementary, and I'm advocating specifically for comprehensive food programs in our schools, not just gardens. But with the recent shift in focus of the federal administration on climate change and potential shifts on social safety nets, it's imperative that we begin to institutionalize education around local food and food systems, specifically through school gardens, farm to school, edible landscaping, quality nutrition, and emergency food programs. These can prepare our children with practical, useful skills for life as adults. They have the potential to increase food security and neighborhood resilience during times of emergencies and crisis, and potential for lower costs to use to the school districts and carbon output. I urge the school board to begin seeking partnerships to lessen your worry around liability, and also take examples from our neighbors at Franklin Pierce and our friends over on the islands who are running very successful campus farms and school gardens, and begin the establishment of healthy and sustainable food in Tacoma schools. Thank you.
Lilith Peary, followed by Ann Vanderpool Kimura.
My name is Lilith Peary. I have students at Bryant, Stanley, and Mason. I am the volunteer garden team leader at Bryant, and I'm part of a group of concerned citizens, parents, educators, and community members from all areas of Tacoma who want to help the district move towards adopting an innovative, safe, and fair garden-friendly policy. Our requests are as follows. The district should issue a clarifying statement to administrators and garden educators regarding the 4-year-old legal email forbidding students to taste school-grown produce, which is still being followed in some schools. We request DPS to develop a fair and consistent policy supporting innovative, garden-based education with input from experts at the Health Department, WSU, Pierce Conservation District, Farm to School Program, and the City of Tacoma, as well as educators, nutritionists, and volunteers already involved in garden-based education within the district. And I have a resource list of community partners willing to be contacted by you to assist. We believe the new policy should include the following: to allow all schools that want a garden to have a garden, a commitment to encourage the consumption of healthy local foods in schools, especially the foods students grow themselves. Food we grow and eat should meet federal safety requirements. There should be a reasonable district-wide minimum standard for food safety, such as GAP training that is not onerous to staff or volunteers, is widely available and recommended by experts. Food we grow can be donated to those in need per the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act, and especially to our own students in need. The policy should include a commitment to increased communication both within the district's various departments and District 2 Garden to facilitate safe and respected gardens and garden-based education. Increased partnerships with organizations, farms, the City of Tacoma, and other community partners that can provide support to school gardens and programs. And a commitment to explore and support innovative programs such as farm to school, edible schoolyards, school farm stands, and CTE opportunities in plant science and horticulture. We also would like the district to develop a sustainable schools initiative in accordance with Tacoma's 2016 Environmental Action Plan to include the following: composting and yard waste recycling at school cafeterias and gardens, eliminating pesticide use on school grounds to protect students and Puget Sound, and greening schools by planting trees, adding rain gardens, and landscaping with low-maintenance native plants. Okay, thank you. And I have the resource list. If you're interested, I can pass that along.
Anne Vanderbilt Kimura, followed by Clara Cheeves.
Hi, I'm Ann Vanderpool Kimura. I have 2 children in the Tacoma Public School District. And I wanted to speak to you about, I want to ask the Tacoma Public Schools Maintenance Department to develop a system to reduce pesticide use, and also, when it has to be used, to have smarter pesticide use, to work with those communities that are, those schools that have communities that are trying to develop their community gardens. So, so pesticides are poison, of course, and while human beings can't be killed by pesticides, they do still have an impact, especially children who are growing. Research shows that children exposed to pesticides during critical periods face higher risks of ADHD and cancer, among facing higher risks of other bad effects as well. Children are sicker today than they were a generation ago, and some of that is environmental hazards. And so for those environmental hazards that we have control over, like pesticides, we really need to work to try to minimize those. One thing that I've heard a lot of issues with the maintenance department, and kind of one size fits all on the maintenance at schools, is in the schools where they, like at Bryant Montessori, there are a couple pesticide-free zones, and so that's the zone where there's no pesticides. But maintenance people repeatedly have been found spraying right at the boundary of the pesticide-free zone. So then it's no longer pesticide-free because the pesticide doesn't stop right there, because that's the boundary. It goes into the areas. And that affects students, volunteers, parents that are working in those areas. Many schools have armies of parent volunteers, student volunteers that are willing to do the extra work needed, or, weeding. You can learn a lot from weeding too. We have living classrooms. And so once again, I ask the maintenance department to please find a way to be more flexible and be more innovative like the rest of Tacoma Public Schools. Thank you.
Clara Cheeves, followed by Emily Bosch, I think.
Good evening. We are here as a coalition of parents, educators, and organizers who would like to see our students' health and educational opportunities reflected in an equitable, healthy school and food policy. We're asking for an edible schoolyard program, a national movement to transform our schoolyards to edible landscapes. We see our children eating and cooking what they grow. We see garden-based curriculum infused with project-based learning in the garden, an outdoor classroom. An example of this is in Berkeley, California, where an edible schoolyard program has a 1-acre garden at King Middle School. Students grow, cook, and eat together with garden-based education integrated into the curriculum. We see our school district enacting another national program, Farm to School. This program supports school districts in purchasing food to enhance school breakfast and lunch with fresh local foods. A great example of this is in Oakland Unified School District in Oakland, California. They employ a farm to school and a good food purchasing policy program and are in the process of building an urban farm for the district. Not only do they purchase produce, but they source their chicken and grains for the students as well. They serve an average of 20,000 school lunches per day. We see the creation of a farm and horticulture program in multiple high schools, not just a single. School-based farms where students work on the farm and distribute food back into the school and into the larger community for consumption, which was really great to see the award given to the food bank earlier. It's a great opportunity for additional partnerships. And lastly, we see the district implementing a composting program with support from the city of Tacoma, completing the circle of learning for students, from growing and harvesting to eating and then returning what we do not consume back into the land. We see these programs as not just something for a handful of schools who are able to mobilize volunteers, but for all students. Schools that don't have those resources for PTA to organize extra funding, to get volunteers. We want all students in all the schools to have these opportunities. We want an equitable policy for healthy school food and garden-based education for all children in Tacoma Public Schools. Thank you.
Emily Bosch, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Emily Bosch. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm also a mom of 3 kids who attend DeLong Elementary School. And I also help maintain the school garden that we have there and have taught nutrition classes there in partnership with WSU Extension programs. In all of those roles, I desire a whole child learning environment for my kids and their classmates, which, as you know, means they feel challenged, supported, healthy, safe, and engaged. So I'm here tonight to explain how research data indicates that programs like school gardens provide a whole child learning environment. Much of the information I'm talking about is in this brochure that's put out by WSU, and there's copies that the secretary has that I'd love for you to take with you. So on helping kids be healthy, research data shows that garden education improves student nutrition. Garden students are more likely to try various vegetables. They give vegetables higher flavor ratings, so then it makes sense that the data would show they eat more fruits and vegetables, even at school lunch. One study actually showed that garden students more than doubled their servings of produce after having nutrition and garden education. Consequently, these students are increasing their intakes of vitamin A, vitamin C, fiber. And as a dietitian whose life goal is to get nutrients into people, this is huge. School gardens also impact physical activity. Children who get to help and learn in their school garden report less sedentary behavior, more moderate physical activity during the school day, and they get to learn while being active. Garden lessons tend to involve walking and pulling and digging, things that move their bodies. On helping kids be challenged and engaged, hands-on experiential learning in a garden challenges all 5 of your senses. Students get to ask and answer questions about what they see, hear, smell, touch, and taste. Data from research on students who participate in school garden programs show significantly higher scores on science achievement tests, improved academic outcomes in science and math and language arts. On helping students feel safe and supported, a student with access to a school garden is getting contact with nature, which alleviates stress and mental fatigue. It encourages imagination, creativity, brain development. Studies have shown that garden students report feeling calm and safe and happy in the garden. They are more likely to accept people different from themselves. They increase their self-understanding and interpersonal skills. So as a dietitian and as a mom, I'm encouraged by all this data that supports what I already experience at our DeLong garden. School gardens help create a holistic learning environment. So in order to build on our garden successes and be freed up to offer more to our students without fear of being penalized, we would like to request that the Tacoma School Board develop a fair and consistent policy to allow for the consumption of healthy, local, including garden, foods in our Tacoma Public Schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment for this evening. We are grateful for everybody who shared their thoughts with us tonight. It is together that we move forward in this district. Moving on to item number 7, it's the superintendent's report. 7.1 is teaching and learning.
So we have 2 superintendent, 2 things I'd like to have as a superintendent report. First one is the board is asked to have frequent, short, brief reports from Marie around the alignment of what we're doing with the audits. Would you do that for us, Marie?
Certainly. Good evening, President Ashka, Vice President Cobb, members of the board. This is a follow-up to the December 8th Superintendent's Report about the K-12 standards alignment work. Tonight, we will review a few pieces about where we've been, what we've learned through an internal audit of the use of standards in our system, Washington State Learning Standards, and where we're headed. In the Friday report last week, you received links to the full internal audit report, as well as a 3-year high-level action plan related to each recommendation from the audit report. I'm going to provide a brief overview for you tonight. The data from the internal audit was conducted over the last few months, and it highlighted our system's current use of the Washington State Learning Standards. We understand we have more work to do to look like the arrow on the right. We have good intentions, however, we need to better align our K-12 expected outcomes around the state standards so we have a more consistent approach across the district while still supporting the importance of the art and science of teaching that comes with professional autonomy. Last week, you received a link to a very lengthy audit report, which included details about the methodologies that we used, including the percentage of Tacoma public educators who participated in this audit, as well as students and parents. This is a high-level snapshot of the 4 findings and the 5 recommendations that came from reviewing trends from the different data sources. Clicking it without knowing it, sorry. The findings highlight the need for alignment and prioritization of the many Washington State learning standards, as well as the need for quality professional learning for our educators. The recommendations based on these findings show the importance of engaging all of our stakeholders in this work, as well as providing unique and diverse learning experiences for our educators. The audit report outlines a 3-year plan. For this presentation, we're going to look very quickly at the 5 steps taking place between now and August 2017. We are quickly moving forward on recommendation numbers 2 and 3, as we have identified a diverse group of educators through an application process to create 3 standards prioritization teams. The prioritization process will begin in 2 weeks, beginning with K-12 English Language Arts standards, K-12 Health and Fitness standards, and 6-12 World Language standards. We've already started to lay the groundwork on the remaining recommendations, and we anticipate having signed charters through our project management office to formalize each of these steps by the end of February. Last week's Friday report contained links, as I've said, to the full audit report as well as an executive summary. Our future reports in March and May, I will come back to you and present you an update on our progress, specifically what we've done with the standardization of the prioritization of the standards thus far. I will highlight some of the feedback from our educators who have participated in this work. And in May, I will give you an update specifically on what's been done up to that point, as well as preview some of the work for 17-18. We'll continue to keep you up to date in the Friday reports throughout the process.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
I just wanted to say, Marie always make that look like it's so easy.
Yeah.
And I just want to acknowledge the incredible amount of work that it takes, not to put the report together, but do the work that supports the report. And we know that our achievement of students will increase when our teachers are so well connected with the standards and the curriculum, and it's clean and it's sequenced. And so the work you're doing is incredible, and it takes so much longer when you have a lot of people coming together to work on it and make sure that it's collaborative, but we know in the long run it's going to be so good. So thank you so much for that work. This report makes it look easy, and I know it's not. So thank you.
Great. Vice President Cobb.
I just have one question. ELA, as opposed to health and physical education and world languages, well, with ELA we have this state level assessment that's tied to federal accountability, whereas with the others there's state standards and then have some recommended assessments, and I think we have some assessments, but it's a little bit different in terms of the connection between the ELA exam and the Smarter Balanced assessment. So is there any difference in the process that these teams will engage in to be looking at what's a priority in terms of the standards, and then what do we think in terms of the standards that will be assessed in the end on the Smarter Balanced assessment?
That's a great question, and we'll be using a very specific process to identify and determine which are our priorities. And one of the extra steps that we will take with English Language Arts and Mathematics, because of the Smarter Balance assessment that assesses how well our students are doing on those standards, we will also, in addition to the other steps of the process, which I will be outlining for you as we go along, we'll also be looking at that alignment to the state assessment. Now, with health and fitness, the new health and fitness standards are rigorous and they're robust in and of themselves, and while there isn't a state assessment that measures, we certainly have internal assessments, classroom-based assessments that we use along the way. So we'll be looking at that as well for both health and fitness and world language, knowing that Eventually, we'll be doing this process with all of our standards, as you would see in that high-level 3-year plan. Just be starting with these 3 this year. But yes, it will be a very important part of the steps that we will take to look at the state assessment as we do this work.
Thank you.
The state assessment is one piece. So in theory, the assessment will change as long as it continues to measure the standards. And so that adds a level of complexity. In addition to this process that we haven't had a chance to articulate to you yet, is we have to look at the highest level of learning possible that's offered. So we'll be starting with our IB and AP curriculums and working backwards from what standards they have. The prioritization allows us to close the opportunity gaps where some students may not have the opportunity to have access at no fault to our educators, but just because there are so many standards. And so, as Assistant Superintendent Verhar mentioned, we will consider assessments, but we'll consider a variety of assessments. And I'm very proud of the team. I'm very proud of our classroom teachers for being vulnerable enough to be honest with their feedback and reaching out and saying, this is the time for us in Tacoma to align those opportunities and close those gaps.
That makes me think of a question. And that is, AP, don't they have their own standards? The advanced placement people come up with standards that we have to adhere to?
AP has curriculum that meets the standards that have set. So the AP classes have to meet the same standards that have been established for those high school courses. It's just, they have a curriculum that's already prescribed. So it might be that a teacher has to augment and do some other things to meet the standard, for the state.
And to prepare students to be successful on those advanced program exams.
Yeah, well, that's sort of a national curriculum, I think. So I'm just kind of interested in that statement about how we're going to start from the top and work our way down. I'd like to see how that works.
It's backwards planning, yep, and we'll keep you involved. There's even just, as Superintendent Santorno mentioned, they have very specific elements of there. When you get into things like AP Calculus, as well, where the smarter balance is here, AP Calculus is here, we have to figure out how to ensure that those segments are back there. And so it's gonna be quite a comprehensive process. And then there's courses that we haven't even identified yet, singleton classes, AP Computer Science, and what does that mean? So there's huge opportunities for us to engage all the educators across the system involved in this work.
So when you look at AP, so University of Washington will not accept AP English even if you pass the test. So how do we reconcile that curriculum thing? It's kind of interesting that they don't like the way the standards are set by the AP advanced placement people for UW, so they won't accept it. So
we'll have to dig into that. I'm unaware of that. So yeah.
Oh yeah. They won't. It's a completely different teaching method. So.
Okay, thank you, Director Vial. Are there any other questions or comments?
Any more brief comments? Sorry.
Director Hines, did you have any comments?
Two questions. One, would you elaborate on the development of the cycle for student advisory, what that will entail?
The development of this, so we haven't put into place exactly how we're going to go about doing that. What we did for the audit is we went around to about 5 different schools, middle and high schools, and conducted kind of just a conversation, if you will, with students about what they know about standards. Some of the ideas that we have right now that we're still formalizing are to set up perhaps some regional types of conversations with and invite students. We want to go to them since we know it's not easy for them to come to us. So set those up around the district so that there's multiple opportunities to hear from students in all different, and then also as we continue through the process, we want to engage them in some questions to keep us thinking about what we need to know from their perspective. So it was fascinating to hear what students said when and you have some of those comments in the full audit report, which is also available online. It was fascinating to hear what some of the students were saying about learning standards and what they know, and then also their families, what their families know or what they'd like to know more about, and where do these standards come from, and why do we have standards. And so all of those pieces we want to develop communication pieces to be able to get out to the hands of our students students and our families so that they understand that standards are the what. They're what students need to know. It's not the how. It's not a standardization of teaching. It's not taking our incredibly talented teaching force and standardizing what they do. The art and science of teaching is such a critical aspect of the profession of teaching. We don't ever want to take that away from teachers. We just want to be more aligned and clearer in which standards and ensure that our students leave the grade level, the course, and then ultimately TPS, having had the opportunity to master those essential standards that they're going to need in their later life.
And I appreciate the inclusion of the students. I think sometimes we get going on adult stuff and we have the perspective of the students that we're doing all the good stuff for. And you helped me segue nicely into my next question, which was around the internal and external communication plan. And you hit on the what. So as we're talking about the what internally and externally, but also the why, so there's clarification on why we're doing this and making certain that we're talking about it before we just implement it so people understand, because there's so much good work that's occurring right now that I think people should be aware of it, and also to foreshadow where we're going, and then just that continued engagement so they understand the progress that's being made and the outcomes that we expect to achieve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Student Representative Olson, do you have any questions or comments before we go into second questions with the board?
I was kind of confused on the statement that UW does not take AP credits. I thought all the AP classes taken at least at the stadium, they're through UW. So I was kind of confused on that.
I think that we're going to have to follow up on that. I don't think we actually have facts before us at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Great. Vice President Kopp, did you have a follow-up?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions or comments? Great.
So I also asked Dr. Garcia to kind of give us a update on our mump situation. So he's going to tell us a little bit about the mumps.
Thank you. As many know, mumps are on the rise, not only in Washington State and Pierce County, but also across the nation. And unfortunately, Tacoma is not. We are being impacted as well. And so we have had, as of today, we have more cases that have been brought to our attention. So we have 2 students at Stadium High School that have been diagnosed with mumps, and a second student at Jason Lee. What we wanted to share to you tonight is that we're working closely with the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department on a day-to-day basis to monitor and to make sure that we're following all the rules and guidelines that are coming from the health department as well as the state of Washington. We're very thankful for that collaboration with the health department. Every case is a little unique in how it's handled based on the experience, the contagion period, several other factors. And so what's really important for us to let families know is we need to keep you up to date by a case-by-case situation. And so we are doing that in several ways. We are reaching out individually to any family that is impacted. We are notifying school staff. We are doing deep cleans in each of our buildings every time a new case comes. We are doing robocalls with updates in addition to all the others. We are doing letters home in multiple languages. And every time there's a new update, such as in Jason Lee, we repeat the cycle. And so if there is more cases that are coming about for those families that could be impacted, please don't hesitate to give us a call. You can contact your local school. You can keep regular updates through social media, through our websites, but we will continue this communication for every impacted family. Those personal contacts, robocalls, and certified mail to make sure, mail to make sure that they are contacted as well. And then we're working with each individual family that is being excluded by order by Pierce County Health Department to try to provide them an educational program the best they can. We recognize that families, there are several reasons why a student may not have vaccinations. And we are working with our staff to honor those requests and also provide information to ensure how a student could come back to school if they choose. So in conclusion, please continue to monitor. If you have questions, reach out to us and we will do our best to also push information out.
Thank you. Board questions or comments? Vice President Cobb?
You said that when a new case arises, we do deep cleans of our buildings, but in this in-between time, I've often on my own kids' school, I see like bottled hand sanitizer. Are we doing anything to provide like additional like Clorox wipes or anything like that, just so that teachers can, and students even, can more regularly wipe things down, and any accommodation for like more time will be washing hands? I know kids are like out of lunch, just back right in, like not washing hands. So are we doing anything to encourage?
Yeah, we have
those?
signage throughout our buildings. We have hand sanitizers that are available. Our custodial staff and our teaching staff and our kids and community take a great job caring for their buildings. And so there is a heightened awareness. And then if extra supplies are needed, in any case, we're there to respond. I want to thank the custodial staff. It's not required that we do deep cleans. We feel like that's the right thing to do every time there's a situation. And so right now, custodial staffs from across the district have come together to work extra literally the drop of a hat. In essence, we get notified and they're responding. And we're so thankful for their service and their opportunities. So I hope that answers it.
Fantastic. Any other questions or comments, Director Hines?
Just a question on the exclusion order. So I've heard community members express concern that Tacoma Public Schools is excluding students. Are we doing that arbitrarily, or is that the health department's responsibility?
So there's a WAC. I don't have the exact WAC in front of me. I was looking at my notes, but the WAC requires the health department to put in an order to exclude students. And we work with the health department when there is a confirmed case to determine what the exclusion criteria is. And the health department puts that into an actual order that orders the school district to follow the exclusion based on the circumstances that they are determining.
And who signs the order?
Dr. Chen for the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department is the one that orders it. These are electronic communications.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great.
That completes my report.
Thank you. I just want to comment quickly that the rigor and diligence with which the district has addressed this issue, like other issues, is commendable. I know that trying to manage education plans and other strategies for every child that's out there that might be affected by this is no simple task, but it's been taken on fearlessly and doing their best to make sure that everybody has what they need. So thank you, everybody, for your hard work on that. It's not the only issue that we dealt with this week. So
greatly appreciate that, and I would be remiss not to thank all the folks that are sitting in the crowd that are working, including those that are watching at home. This is truly an all hands on deck. We form a team, we respond. There are multiple people in the buildings, but I'd also like to recognize Chalet Hobbs, who's our nurse in charge, and Chalet has been diligent helping us navigate these situations, working in communication, and she had to rush off to take a class tonight, so if she is watching, we want to thank her for her service.
Excellent.
Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Before I ask for a motion on this, I just want to inform the public and anybody else that's paying attention that the consent agenda includes items that we've all had a chance to review and ask questions about in advance of this meeting. They are generally issues that ensure that professional development as well as the basic operations and business of the district can continue on an ongoing basis. That being said, is there a motion to adopt the
I move approval.
Second.
Motion's been moved and approved. Are there any questions and comments?
Yeah, I have just a question about personnel, and we're adding, some people are being approved for administrative positions. So I want to know if those are newly created positions or if they are filling positions that are going to be vacated by retirements.
They are vacated positions.
Okay.
Meaning filled by retirees or resignations as a result of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? All those in favor indicate adoption by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Moving on down to item number 9 is policy matters. There are no policy matters for consideration this evening. Item number 10 is the quarterly financial update, of which there is none, although regular updates can be found at tacomaschools.org/finance/pages/financial reports. Might I suggest a short URL? Item number 11, curriculum and instruction. There is no curriculum and instruction matters for consideration. Item number 12, business matters. 12.1, approval of the establishment of the Pierce County Jail Juvenile Educational Program Interagency Agreement. And
on behalf of the Assistant Superintendent of K-12 Support, the Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Executive Director of Secondary Education, we all recommend that the Board of Directors approve the Pierce County Juvenile Court Interagency Agreement for the 2016-17, 2017-18, and 2018-19 school years. Funding source, the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, Basic Education.
Move approval.
Second.
motion's been moved and seconded. Are there any discussions or comment? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. Moving on to item number 13, other business. Item 13.1 is approval of resolution number 2018 regarding safe zones. The Board of Directors of Tacoma School Districts proclaims our schools will contain a safe zone for immigrant students to learn and thrive. Schools will provide a safe, private location where students may seek assistance, information, and support related to immigration. The Board of Directors and Superintendent commit to model the values in this resolution and ask each staff member to join in this commitment to our students. Are there questions or discussions regarding the resolution from board members?
I think we need a motion first, don't we?
We probably do. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, please. Director Hines?
I have a comment. So in communication with Director Vial, when she realized that she was not going to be able to attend the meeting, she wanted to make certain that on her behalf I expressed her strong support of the resolution.
Thank you. She actually expressed the same to me, so I'll just mention it again. Let it be known that Director Vial supports this resolution. Director Vial, Winskill.
So I have a question. So as I read down the list of everything that's involved in that resolution, I have questions when it comes to the very end. And when it talks about safe zones, and I'm not quite sure what it means and what we're going to do, and what we're going to do in the individual schools. So maybe the administration.
That's a good question, and thank you for asking it. So this, I don't know, later as we thought about it, we maybe should used a different word. All we're talking about is a place for, to identify a place for students that if they have questions or issues or they need information, they can go there and get it. So it's not any kind of a zone marked off or anything like that. It's just a place where they can go. It could be the counselor's office. It could be the principal's office. To me, it's no different than when we have a staff member pass away and we tell students, go to the library if you need support or counseling or anything like that.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, if somebody, is this going to be, if somebody has committed a crime and they're an immigrant and the police want to go in and talk to the student, are they going to be allowed to do that?
So we're not changing any of the current legal rules that exist. This has nothing to do with us making a statement or the board making a statement about current legal, current laws or current legalities. This only relates to making sure that we know that all of our students have a safe place to go and talk about any issues they have.
Good. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Other comments from the board? Okay, I'd just like to make a few comments quickly. And if it pleases the board, I'd actually like to read this resolution into the record. Okay. We had a robust conversation about some of the dialogue that we would use within this resolution, and the status and whether a person is an immigrant or whether they are a refugee or whether they are a resident or a non-resident. These are complex issues and they have legal bearing that vary from district to city to other areas. I want to be abundantly clear that our intent is that any student that comes to our doors, this covers under any circumstances that we would serve. So if there's any challenges with language there, we will be educated through that and can make improvements as we move forward. We tried to capture it to the best of our ability, but I absolutely want to clarify that intent. I also want to clarify that a lot of this resolution comes from a lot of expressed community concerns and heightened alerts to what could happen or what might happen on the basis of presidential orders last week. here in Tacoma, we're going to not tolerate discrimination or intolerance of any type against any student, and we're going to make sure that the continuous learning of every student every day is maintained to the best of our ability with the due diligence of all the resources that we can bring to bear. With that being said, I'd like to read this into the record. Resolution number 2018 regarding safe zones. A resolution of the Board of Directors and staff of Tacoma School District number 10, Pierce County, Washington, the district, supporting the Tacoma Public Schools commitment to serve all students regardless of their citizenship, immigration status, in an equitable and inclusive environment so that students may learn and thrive. Whereas the primary responsibility of Tacoma Public Schools is to ensure that we serve every student every day and that students graduate ready for college, career, and citizenship. And whereas the diversity of our students is an asset that makes each classroom, each school, and the district overall stronger, more innovative, and more focused on the world beyond our walls. And whereas we are committed to providing all students their legal right to access free public K-12 education, regardless of their religion, their place of birth, their language, their citizenship, their refugee status, their immigration status, their parents' immigration status, or any other legally protected characteristics. Whereas each student deserves to be supported by qualified caring adults and receive access to personalized learning, the whole child. And whereas the Board of Directors recognizes that encouraging inclusive and respectful environments where students know they are safe, supported, welcomed, respected, valued, and included helps students achieve their potential and allows them to be successful. And whereas we are committed to maintaining school communities where all students, families, and staff are safe, respected, and valued, and where students can engage in the learning process without fear of bullying, harassment, intimidation, or discrimination. And whereas equity and social justice are cornerstone values for our district, and we are committed to the enhancement and continuous improvement of learning environments that communicate the acceptance, worth, and importance of each student. And whereas the Board of Directors is committed to governing the district through a lens of equity and social justice, and to developing and maintaining structures throughout the district that support this lens, including in hiring decisions, professional development, and course and lesson development. Now therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of Directors of the Tacoma Public Schools District proclaims our schools will contain a safe zone for immigrant students to learn and thrive. Schools will provide a safe, private location where students may seek assistance, information, and support related to immigration. The Board of Directors and the Superintendent commit to model values in this resolution and ask each staff member to join this commitment to our students. All those in favor?
Just, if I may, just for
Director
context
Hines.
to add that I think will help. So I am reading off of a fact sheet that was developed by the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Patrol in partnership with the U.S. Department of Education that says all children have a right to a free public education regardless of their actual or perceived immigration or citizenship status or that of their parents. So not only is this the right thing to do, it is the legal thing to do.
Correct. Any other comments or questions? Great. All those in favor so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Resolution passes. Thank you. Sorry, item number 14, report to the board. 14.1, Building for Achievement. Chief Operating Officer Steve Maricani and team.
Team assemble.
Good evening, Board President Ushka, Vice President Cobb, Directors Winskill and Hines, Student Representative Olson, Superintendent Santorno, and Deputy Superintendent Dr. Garcia. It's with great pride and honor that we get to present 2 reports to you tonight on the facilities side of things. First, we're going to start off with our maintenance and operations team. There's some new faces here, so we'd like to go through some introductions. Our Executive Director, Steve Story, over facilities. Our newest addition to the team, Steve Graves, who is our custodial supervisor. And you've all met Tom Chalk. He was here last year when we updated on the maintenance team. He's our maintenance supervisor. And actually, sorry, Paul is our newest member. beating out Steve by a month or two. So Paul Harris is our new custodial operations manager. So I'm excited to let you guys see. There were some challenges made by Director Miller the last time we were in front of you, encouraging us to aim high and wishing us success. And I think we're going to report to you tonight on some improvements that we've made over the last year. And I hope you're as excited as we are to see the direction we're going. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve. Steve, I've got the remote. So, and we have the capital projects update loaded. So maybe we can switch over to the maintenance and operations board reports.
Paul is the fine leader that helped all of our custodians organize in there. I gave credit earlier to Tom, but I feel a due diligence to publicly recognize Paul for his leadership.
And I would add that Paul, Steve, Alex, Al Martin, we had a team going today with phones left and right. The office was abuzz in call in to find the folks to help tonight. And the interesting part that Paul, we put together a communication to go out through the Public Information Office, and it was easier to identify the schools that weren't impacted by bringing folks out than to list the ones that were. It's definitely been a team effort tonight to get the number of hours covered. So I think we're up and running. So Steve, I'll operate the slideshow if you want to get going.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. So today is a perfect example of what has changed in the maintenance operations department. The things that we started out from when we had the third-party review back in 2014, identified many areas that needed to be changed, turned over, looked at again, squeezed.
Can you turn your mic on it?
It's not coming on. Now? Okay, sorry. And we squeezed it out enough to define those elements that needed to be changed. Through that review, there were many things that were identified, as I said before. Last year, we came back and talked to you about some of our success, our progress, some of the KPI ideas that we've had, and some changes. Some of the changes, as you can see just across the table here with Paul Harris and Steve Graves just in the operations area, has made a big difference. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the 3 takeaways from that third-party review that has made a big difference in how we operate. One is the mission, vision, and values, where our mission is just aligning our business practices to the strategic goals of the district. Our vision is to be a model K-12 M&O department that other school districts are looking to us for some answers on how we do business. And our values are just doing the right thing all the time. We've also concentrated on performance goals and objectives, building KPIs, squeezing out numbers, data-driven decisions on everything we're doing these days. And the big part that I'm really happy about is how we've developed our communication and the culture throughout our department, that the interchange between maintenance and operations and maintenance and operations in the school district itself through principals and the staff has made a big difference. So tonight, I'm proud to be with this team, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom Chalk as our maintenance manager, and he's going to talk a little bit about where maintenance has been.
Am I on? Is this on?
Yeah. No. One more.
Okay. All right. Good evening. We have a good news story, and we can only share a fraction of that today in this short period of time. We've enhanced our customer service by closing the customer service loop with our feedback loop to our customers by a email that goes out to each of our customers once the work order is complete. We're ensuring the highest priority work orders are completed to customer satisfaction by tracking both priority and trades. And we're tracking our trades accomplishments so we can determine whether the composition of our trade makeup will meet the needs of the district as best suited today. We're always looking for enhanced process improvements. Recently, we shifted from a paper carbon copy process of our work order system to a paperless, which has allowed us to reduce our work orders, and I apologize, to move to a web-based database system, and I apologize. Now our technicians receive work orders in the field versus going through a paper environment, which has much improved our organization. We've upgraded our work order management system to increase preventive maintenance program and also to analyze our KPIs, allowing us for predictive changes to our processes versus being reactive to everything that we do, which makes a much easier transition to changes in our organization. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Paul.
Thank you, Tom. Is mine on? Hello. All right. So thanks, Tom. As you all are aware, KPIs are part of what drives the direction of Tacoma Public Schools. Some of the areas of focus in the maintenance and operations departments are costs associated with materials, supplies, and staffing. We are currently networking relationships to collect statewide school district KPI information. This will give us a true baseline of comparatives. When we started looking at our KPIs and who and what we were measuring against, we realized that we didn't really have an equitable comparative available to us. So, as a state board member of WAMOA, I have a direct contact with many of the larger districts in the state. We are now receiving data from those schools and will set the standard for establishing Washington state data baselines. Using this data while integrating best practices, streamlining districts' inventory and materials, we will be transforming the maintenance and operations into the state's leading department. With that, I would like to pass this along to Mr. Steve Graves, who will be talking to you about communication and culture.
Thanks, Paul. So the QWL was established to improve the culture and communication throughout the maintenance and operations department. So this group is a group of volunteer employees, which makes it special. This group has vetted a charter and has established core goals to drive their actions. So the three goals that the Quality of Work Life team has established are improved work conditions, promote concepts of team, and to build trust. So those are the three goals that guide the direction of the Quality of Work Life team. So how do you measure those? The QWL has come up with a climate survey. So this survey is a 14-question survey scaled from 1 to 7, and it's distributed across all of maintenance and operations. So everybody fills out a survey, and the results are what drive our direction for improvement. And I'm excited to say, over 18 months, we've issued 3 different surveys, and they've all increased. So we started with a 4.4, then it was a 4.5, and now it's a 5.2. So that tells us the things we're doing are working, and it builds excitement in this group of employees, which is huge for us.
So all those good things only last for a moment, and you gotta take a chance. And as I learned the other day, that innovation just happens. So does what we do just happens, and we make it happen every day. And so, as you can tell, as Paul talked about, championing the statewide collaborative data collection, that's really important, because I've been lucky to put together a team here, and Steve Murakami and I, of people who are know what's going on in the state, know how to do their job, and we're making a difference in a lot of different places, and that's important. So we're going to drive that information. Tom's talked about improved production capacity. I can't say enough of what we've done with just where our members, the employees, recognize that their trade is so important that we drive their jobs with the trades that they're doing, and we're increasing. Maybe it's 3 today that they get done. Next year it'll be 4 a day, and that makes a difference on the number of work orders we handle every day. Professional development, second to none. We are engaged with our employees every day and making sure they're better, and they can only be better if they learn more. The custodial staff, every month I'll have a meeting with their chief custodians and talk about the new things that are going on, so the chiefs deliver that information down to each one of their members. New equipment and how it's used. We have team meetings. We had one over the holiday break. We had all our members together and had a great collaborative involvement. On the maintenance side, we understand that technology, you got to keep up with technology, and technology moves pretty fast. And so we're allowing opportunities for our teams to get that training as well. And one of the other things that we've been able to do, so we can show and be able to exhibit more than just a slideshow like this, and we've been teaming with the IT team, and I'd like to really thank them. But we put together a Power BI dashboard, as you can see right here. And this is just the start of what we're doing. But this is a snapshot of what we have open. I don't know when we took this, but it's 3,483 work orders. But it tells you all our KPIs and our work order levels of how we're working it. It gives you an idea of our square footage of buildings. If you see the map at the top there, it talks about that's the square footage of each one of our buildings. And with this data, we're going to move forward and understand where our heavy points are, what we need to concentrate at. We may look at how we rearrange our custodial staffs. So, in closing, I want to thank the board, and I want to thank Superintendent Santorno, Dr. Garcia, for allowing us to be here to share in what we're doing here in maintenance operations, and to thank the school district itself to giving us the opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
If I could, I'd like to add, they went through that really fast, and there, like Tom said, there's a lot of stories to celebrate. Every day, Paul comes to me, sometimes in shock and awe, figuring out, diving in and refining the business of the day-to-day operations, and the dashboard goals of being able to look site by site, cost per materials, persons per square foot, looking at comparative analysis. There's things going on in the district that, to the best of my knowledge, haven't been done before. Collaborating with purchasing to really establish a material order for the year that's not just Tacoma schools, but broken down by site. And so we can start getting into which sites are costing us more and which are really efficient. The data that's coming out of this, I think you guys would be proud of. It's the conversation we've been having with you, the board, over the last 5 to 10 years of getting better information of how we do our business and where we can improve. And these guys are really hungry for not only improving the culture and communication within the department, but also the sophistication of how we do our job. So the Friday reports that we've been issuing show the work orders. You have to dive into the information. The portals are going to help, but what you don't see is the preloading of all the preventative maintenance work orders, so that it's pre-populated, so that we know that that device that needs to be inspected annually comes up regularly, and that the inspection or replacement of those belts on that machine to make sure that the startup and heat comes on, those pieces are taken care of. And so they're doing a great job in terms of sophistication in getting to know their work. Every day there's something new, and then there's always the influx of the mumps or the lead in the water or moving Stewart from Hunt to the PDC in a matter of hours. And so I'm proud to be a part of this team. So questions? We're happy to answer.
Vice President Cobb.
I have a question. So one of you in your comments mentioned the streamlining of inventory and materials. And my question is it's related to work orders, streamlining of materials and inventory. It's really like and it kind of, I think, segues into new construction, but I imagine that having buildings that are all at different stages in their life cycle, that all had different toilets, different whatevers, like different belts, and I just want to know how our new construction projects are sort of impacting your work in terms of ongoing maintenance, and is there, in our new construction, is it benefiting you all in terms of the ongoing maintenance requirements, and are we streamlining in that way? So are the materials that are coming in, do they are we building towards a consistent need around maintenance? I don't know if I'm asking that in a way that resonates with you, but what I'm trying to say is your work of maintaining these buildings is complicated given all the different fixtures, all the different materials and supplies that each of them contain. So as we're building new, is this having an impact on lessening, not actually the duties, because you still have to clean a toilet, whether it's a toilet from 1950 or a toilet from 2000, but is there some additional consistency in your world with some of these new projects that are impacting your day-to-day?
I can start. The one thing that the communication between maintenance and operations and planning and construction is phenomenal in developing a book of standards to make sure that the plumbing lines, the plumbing fixtures, the types of equipment, operating systems are in alignment with what we know to work for us. And they've been great at opening their eyes and being open to new technology as the buildings are changing. There's kind of a misnomer that new buildings are going to save you energy and are going to be easier to take care of. There's a lot more precious new finishes. There's a lot more square footage to take care of. The buildings are much more complex. So it complicates it. It does take, the misnomer about energy efficient buildings being, new buildings being more efficient. We're changing the air 5 times as much. We are moving heat more. The buildings are using and consuming a bit more because we're creating healthier, safer environments. And so it's really these guys to rise to the occasion, to work with planning and construction, to understand the consistency so that from school to school, we have pieces and systems that we can maintain and operate. And Paul has been working with purchasing to do an RFP because a lot of the materials and paper products that we've been using were we weren't maximizing or leveraging the opportunity of our buying power. Individual schools were buying, and so now expected in the next few months is a major RFP to streamline all the soap products, all the paper products, all the chemical products. And so this summer you're going to see a lot of, the manufacturers provide a lot of the equipment. So the dispensers, they install for free before buying their product, and we're going to go through an RFP. So a lot of those pieces are going to get switched out, but we're going to be buying in bulk, and we're going to be addressing and differentiating and understanding where all those materials are going in a way we haven't tracked before.
Thank you.
Is there anything else?
One of the things I'm most proud of the team is just they have not left one stone unturned, and so putting themselves in a vulnerable place to say, I know we've always done it this way. And one of the concepts they didn't get a chance to talk to, this whole philosophy about preventative maintenance and how do we start to identify what we can anticipate and prevent, which I think gets to the core of some of your questioning, not completely. And how do we start to reduce costs in other areas to invest in preventative maintenance to increase life cycles. They also work extremely under I'm not going to use undermanned, underwomaned, under force. There's not a lot of understaffed. Thank you. So much better, right? I'm going to stop there. But that whole concept of preventative maintenance that they have embraced and using data to drive decisions, and you're going to see that again in the next presentation, all with this effort that there's a saying on our academic side that the structure doesn't matter unless it inhibits good relationships and structure. This team understands that they have an ability to improve relationships and instruction by having the structure, physical as well as some of the organizational structure, not occupy time and resources. And that is such a gift to us as an organization.
Other comments or questions? Director Hines?
Yep, thank you for the report. Given where we were in 2014 and with the consultants' work, it's admirable from where we've come. So thank you for your diligence on that. And I think, as you've changed the culture, we've not only improved and made the work environment more productive and enjoyable, which increases efficiency and effectiveness, but you've reduced the risk and liability to the district. So thank you for that. A couple of follow-on questions as we're talking about predictive maintenance and using the analytics. How does that factor into our maintenance of grounds? Are you using predictive analytics? That seems to be something of a recurring question that we get from the community. And it also had some people reach out to me during the winter storms concerned about widowmaker branches and the like. Are we applying analytics, or can you share with us how we're maintaining grounds?
Yes, sir, we sure are. We certainly are. It was on. Okay. We hired a gentleman that actually used to take care of the Cheney Stadium as the director of operations and grounds maintenance there. He's been a great help to us in looking at all of our fields, especially as we've increased our utilization of the elementary fields. And we've got a plan in place to keep those fields in better condition than they've ever been. They were in better condition at the end of this year. So we've restructured a little bit and have, if you will, an athletics or sports team that's going to go out and take care of these fields, and also allow another team to focus on the curb appeal of all the schools. So we'll have 3 grounds maintenance teams that will focus on the north, south, and the school in the fields. So that should help us a great deal in we've analyzed the situation. We look at also possibly going to a A, B, and C level type of service to provide the best service in whatever we can give to the schools at that time. As far as your second question was surrounding, and I apologize.
The widowmakers.
The
Yeah,
widowmakers. The
so winter
widowmakers.
storms, what sort of assessment process do we use to say that branch is dangerous, and or what do we do before and after storms with the preventative and the cleanup?
At the conclusion of any storm, we send our team out to look and clean up whatever mess is there. And then Baker's a good example. We've had one of the tree services in the area, a horticulturist, come out, take a look, tell us what we need to do, and then we'll take action on that. We'll look at all the schools and determine if we need to have somebody come out and take a look at those widowmakers, if you will. We also get community involvement. They'll call us and we'll immediately respond, get those out of the way, and then look to professionals to tell us if we need to take the tree down, what we need to do in that regard.
I would add that, now is mine off? It is? Okay. Prior to 2014, we had a north grounds crew and a south grounds crew. And there wasn't much overlap. There wasn't much communication. There wasn't discussions around best practices. And now the war room that they have, the MOC, the Maintenance and Operations Center, has a massive schedule of every single type of thing you can possibly imagine in terms of from spraying through a approved chemical and pesticide plan to the mowing to make sure that we're getting the grass and the playfields to be safe and allow them to be regenerative. They've got everything mapped out and scheduled and forecasted ahead of time, which is a lot different than where we were a couple years ago. So, yeah.
I think that would be a very interesting story for Dan Vopel and his crew. This is something that I don't think gets a lot of attention, or only gets attention when people have a complaint. I think there's so much good going on in the way you've systematized it, and we're leveraging technology that would make for a great video, and also to give your folks the recognition that they deserve for their hard work. My last question, just around purchasing. I think I'm encouraged to hear you talk about thinking about the power of bulk, and it seems like every year now we're one of the national leaders with our purchasing department. We're winning awards, so we've got an incredible resource. You've got a great partner to work with. Per the comments made during public comment, what are we doing to look at more ecologically friendly recycled materials? Is that a part of our purchasing consideration? And do we need a new policy or a revised policy to give you the latitude to do that? Or is that something that you've got the ability to do now?
I would start off by saying that the program has complied with state guidelines for the types and use of chemicals. But in the past, I think the discretion to use the chemicals has been less. I think that the team is a lot more sophisticated in their approach of understanding how to maintain. For case example, you can go and just indiscriminately spray to hit a weed, but you hit bushes and bark and other things. the team's working on how to be more efficient and careful in their application and process. And I think we're getting to a point where the level of sophistication, we're open to looking to the next steps to friendlier, greener products. And as we refine our use of chemicals, one of the things that Paul's been working on is instead of just getting the big pump stations of chemicals that the custodians pump into their buckets for cleaning, they're looking at pre-portioned packets. And so that we can control the use of chemicals and understand better the MSDS sheets, the safety sheets on all the chemicals posted at all sites. So they are getting more sophisticated every day, and I look forward to that conversation of more green applications.
I think there's a great opportunity if there are not only, I like that we're not solely building by building by building when we're purchasing, we're going to buy as a district. Yeah. So what about finding like-minded districts and looking at, is there a way to use the buying power of multiple districts to go after some of these more environmentally, because it seems inevitably cost, I hear cost is the determiner, and like we've talked about on field turf, that if it's the right thing to do and it's more expensive, then we need to figure out how to do the right thing. We don't want to do it on the cheap. So I'd be interested if there are districts that have put some of these practices in place, is there a way for us to align ourselves philosophically but also leverage the purchasing power to drive down the cost of those potentially more expensive materials?
Well, part of the work that we're going to do, we're reaching out to other school districts, is see what they're buying and how we're buying, and try to bring those vendors in that want to have larger bulk and make those deliveries that they need to be made as well from district to district. And over the past year, we've done a really good job working with purchasing to scrub a lot of our current contracts and go out to vendors and make them sharpen their pencils a little bit more and be smarter about what we're doing. And it's proved positive, and they're learning that Tacoma is not Tacoma. They're going to have to come and sharpen that pencil, and that's a good thing. And we're seeing some good value from that now as well.
That's great. Thank you.
Great. Director Winskill, did you have any comments?
No.
Okay. I want to thank you also for your report. I always get excited when I find out that multi-part carbon forms are removed from existence. It's good for the planet, and I think it's good for people's psychological stability. So, and of course, I like your data dashboard, and I appreciate all those things are happening. Really excited to hear that you have a quality of life committee and that you're getting the engagements of staff across the district. That's so important. I think that across the district, we tend to forget that every student every day takes every single person. The mumps cleanup in particular is a place where the relevance of your work is vitally important. Of course, it's always daily vitally important, so don't let me undervalue that. I'm guessing that a lot of this is involving lean inventory processes too, so that you're not, you're getting probably moving to a place of being able to surplus legacy items that might be there. I work for a state agency, so you can't hide from me. I've had some very interesting things in closets, but that's besides the point. All of that being said, I also love that you're looking statewide where the baseline data is on school districts so that you can see where to go from there. But I would challenge you that once you find that, make your goal better than that. I think that we can be leaders. I think we have the best team in the state, and I hope that you'll reach for that goal. So with that, thank you, and I know that you have another report. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. Thank you. So I'd like to invite Rob Sawatsky, our Director of Planning and Construction, to come up and give a capital projects update.
Good evening. It's on. Normally, we'll come to you and get very excited about design. And in the back of the room, you'll see there are pictures of some of the new buildings that have been opened this year or are opening soon. Tonight is a report about the nuts and bolts. It is a chance to frame the conversation in three main buckets. Thanks. I want to talk about yesterday, where we've been. I want to talk about today, where we currently are and what our processes look like. And I want to talk about tomorrow, recommendations for next steps, and really talking about where we are in terms of budget and where we are in terms of schedule. So with that, I want to pause for a moment and talk about yesterday. It's important to stop and look back and remember that as a school board, you've collectively, with your predecessors, overseen more than $1 billion in Tacoma Public Schools capital projects since 1984. It's a major accomplishment. This really has been up to 2013 about finishing what was called a 30-year master facilities plan. It went beyond 30 years, but really drove the work for the 2013 bond. In last week's Friday report, we gave a little bit of history. If you've had a chance to look at that, or you may look back at that again to just see all the work that has happened over the last numerous decades. So we use a 30-year capital facilities plan to determine the district's current and future capital facilities needs, as well as to monitor adequate cash requirements for budgetary planning. And so with that, I'd like to talk about today. And moving one more slide forward. Here we go. So currently, we have opened Washington, McCarver, the new Wainwright Intermediate School, the academic wing at Wilson, the gym building, and the pool building. We have this summer laid out small capital projects as well, which will again be fulfill part of the over 180 small capital projects that were promised in the bond in 2013. Currently under construction, Wilson, Stewart, Arlington, Sammy, the Environmental Learning Center, and then in design currently Mary Lyon, Browns Point, Bernie, and Grant. We are in history of Tacoma at the pinnacle of our work, and so I put this graphic together with the help of planning and construction staff, and really just to depict, and there's a board at the back as well that shows this, and we kind of boxed the area in the middle to show you the continuity between the height of our staffing, the height of our cash flow, and the pinnacle of work, projects in construction, projects in design, projects going through closeout. We are busier than we have ever been. I wanted to make mention of the revenues that have come in that is familiar to you. So our pre-bond savings of $5 million, $5.5 million, the bond itself $500 million, and then our premium on the bond of just over $2 million, and then the state match of over $37 million that we were eligible for. We had eligibility on Washington, partially on McCarver, Stewart, and Wilson High School, and have hit the point now where we are ineligible for further state matching funds until the funding formula is revised. So that gives you a quick look, and I'm going rather quickly today because we have a lot to cover, so my apologies for that. But now looking further ahead, I wanted to talk about, in general, where our budgets, what our original budgets were, and what our approved budgets were. And you will see some differences there, but I wanted to make mention of a document that's coming to you every Friday on a monthly basis. And Director Hines, you had asked for more transparency and direct reporting on budgets. And so we've started to do that. I think we missed December, but tomorrow you'll get another project status report. I've added some lines in that report so that we're really giving a bottom line forecast of where the dollars and cents are anticipated to be at the end of the project. And frankly, trying to give you worst case scenario so that we can underpromise and overdeliver on the projects.
Just as they're transitioning, all that spending that you saw and all this heavy lifting of the amount of work, simultaneously this team is working to ensure that they're doing community outreach and engaging local businesses in this work, engaging minority and women contractors, working with the city of Tacoma, working with small businesses on how to do business with the city, with us as the Tacoma Public Schools, because we know that there's such a value in helping our economy. And this team has truly taken on the responsibility to use these dollars not only effectively and efficiently for student achievement, but to better the community. And so I'd be hesitant to let that slide go through with all that workload and that money as they're tracking those metrics and improving those outcomes as well.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Moving to the next slide, I wanted to just quickly take you on a walk through what one of the project status report looks like. You're going to find project overview, schedule overview, and a financial summary. And so the first part of that that you're going to see again in tomorrow's Friday report and monthly is a project overview, really just giving the basic information about the project, what type of project it is, who the project manager is, and so on. The next part that you will see is a schedule overview, and so it will show you the original construction start date, when we targeted occupancy, and basically where we are in completion and when we anticipate being substantially complete, which allows us to occupy a building. And then the third part, which becomes very important in terms of our accountability to you and to the public, is the financial summary. And so what we've tried to do here is give you what the original budget was, if there was a revised budget, what that was and approved by you, and then kind of going down through to the anticipated future change orders that could come up and the bottom line of total projected cost. And so this is actually McCarver that I've used as an example, and this is current. And at the bottom you'll see a couple of stars where we give reasons for why you approved a different budget than originally, and then also if there was any school construction assistance program funding that was attached. And I am going to come back to this example in our conversation tonight because we want to be able to define what does budget success look like to give you a clear picture of that. So we will come back to this example. A quick view, Steve, if you want to talk about small
Sure.
caps.
So as part of the 2013 bond campaign, we had $45 million allocated for small capital projects and major capital project contingency. And so this is a summary you'll see in the Friday report that shows us where we are with the 181 projects we promised as part of the $20 million allocation of that $45 million small capital project total account. And what other projects have we done? What's scheduled for this summer? What projects what funding has been transferred to major? And so you'll see that there's already been $7 million committed to major capital projects, but that there's still a $5 million set aside to make sure that we can finish the remaining projects. And then there's still an unassigned balance of $3.8 million in the project for future small capital projects or additional contingency.
And I would just add, part of the reason for that additional, setting aside that $5 million contingency is because of the inflated market that we're in. We've continued to talk about the shortage in labor, material delay and such, and so we want to make sure that as we get to the end, we're on stable ground to make sure we fulfill all the promises in the bond. So in the next slide, I said we would come back to the McCarver example. We will actually in just a moment, but I want to be able to define for you what we're thinking is budget success. And in general, if you look at our total portfolio of projects, if we were to come within 2% of meeting our budgetary goals, plus or minus, we feel that we are being highly successful. And in the industry, that would be similar across districts in the industry. And so I wanted to make sure you understood clearly that we have hard costs, soft costs, which added together create our total project cost. So the hard costs really are the contract. So when we bid a project and there's a contract with a general contractor, those are our hard costs. And then we have our soft costs, which are taxes and permitting and design and project management, furnishings, those kinds of things. And so when we get to the end of a project, you're going to see in the project status reports, and so we'll go to the next slide just as an example. On McCarver, you see the total hard costs that is highlighted in yellow. It shows your current construction contract. And that current construction contract includes what was originally bid and any change orders that were a part of that. So that's the hard cost. The soft cost, you can see the total soft cost, and then you can see the total project cost to date in green. 1.01% over budget. So that puts us in a place on a historical remodel where there were many unforeseen conditions, structural issues, added scope of work, an inflated market, and we're still under that 2% threshold of being on budget. So we feel a highly successful project.
And the team has to deal with all these other variables, right? Every time we make a decision, either as a board to increase scope, to change, or the staff requests increased scope. And what shouldn't go unnoticed here is when we talk about market conditions and we talk about the future and how we predict and the scope, McCarver's 83,000 square feet. A typical elementary school is 55 to 60,000 square feet. So when we ask them to increase scope of nearly 23,000 square feet, and they're still within less than 2% budget, that's a tremendous success. And that doesn't go just happen magically. And so the team works really hard at trying to stay within that budget.
Thank you.
So I'll take a moment to talk about how we define schedule success. And so the school construction market is unlike most in that we have to comply with the school calendar. When the kids come back to school, we need to have seats ready for education to happen. And so the defining schedule success really becomes meeting our school calendar. And there are some things that, like Rob alluded to, market conditions. We call it the Seattle crane factor. Right now there's 62 cranes, which is down from 72 a year ago. But they're driving the same competition for our drywallers, our plumbers, our mechanical subcontractors. And so market conditions definitely impact our ability to deliver projects on time. Unforeseen conditions are always a challenge when you find that piece you weren't expecting. But the overall schedule success, we're looking at complying with the schedules we set up is where success is. But I think there's a conversation coming about making sure that we're building enough time into our construction schedules so that we can accommodate the current market and the demands.
We've typically run a July through July, a 12-month construction schedule, and increasingly we're hearing from the professional estimators and the design teams that we work with
and the contractors.
You know, these are 13 to 15-month projects. And so that means more time for design, in many cases, more time for construction, and yet we've held ourselves to this 12-month window. We experienced this with Wainwright, but we weren't alone. For the first time ever in the state of Washington, in 2016, we had multiple school districts have multiple projects delayed. You can look at Federal Way High School, Bellevue Otto Middle School opened on time but visibly unfinished. Lake Stevens, vendors had indicated that the timeline was too aggressive and they've delayed a full year. Renton School District, Viva Risden Middle School delayed a year, Central Kitsap, and the list goes on. So really unprecedented, but at a time, and this will change. I would imagine the pendulum will swing the other way and we'll have an abundance of labor and market conditions can change. But right now it's a different time. And so I would foresee a conversation in the future about talking about, could we open schools in November? Could we open them over the winter break in December? So something to be thinking about and for us to talk about in the future. So, Steve?
Actually, I'll talk about this
Okay.
one. So,
yeah, go ahead.
Just a reminder of our process. We've brought this graphic to you in the past, and this document was designed to show the interfacing we have with you as a school board. And on the left side are board updates that are informal. On the right are items where board action is required. And so we'll go into the top, into the design phase. And so on the left, again, you see board updates that are informal, and on the right, board actions that are required. So as we go through architectural selection, you're invited into the process for the interviews, and then we bring the proposed contract back to you for approval. We work through a schematic design and bring you along the way, like we are. We're really excited about the February 25th charrette, where we're going to get to sit down with you to talk about philosophy, approach, design, educational delivery, the pedagogical models we're working with in tandem with teaching and learning and K-12 support. And then there are several items in there, like the resolution for non-racial imbalance. That's a statement that OSPI requires for their SCAP process as a item along the way that you have to fulfill. But we're continuing to do those items to make sure that we're not aggravating racial imbalance in terms of equity in where the projects are and how much dollars we're spending. And we did do a study that we released last year that actually showed that most of the East Side projects we're getting a little more dollar per square foot traditionally than others, and so that we are looking at equity across the boards. There are also items in there that are required by OSPI when you're getting the construction funding for value engineering and constructabilities that we're still continuing because it's best practices to make sure that we're spending our dollars wisely and that we're having peer reviews of our projects, that we bring in an architectural design team, a secondary mechanical, electrical, to really make sure that we're spending our dollars wisely and meeting our goals and objectives. So we go into construction documents, and at which point in time we wrap up the construction documents and come back to you for approval of not only the constructability, but to go out to bid. And informal updates include the presentation of interior and exterior finishes and the color boards that you often see in the back of the auditorium. We start off the construction period with a approval of the contractor's bid, and then we work through the contract to final completion in the warranty period, where we ask you to, based on our recommendations, to do the final acceptance.
So I wanted to touch briefly on something that is exciting and significant for Tacoma Public Schools. Schools have to go through a low bid process typically. And you as a board have approved on several occasions now with Stewart and McCarver and now Browns Point for an alternative delivery called GCCM, General Contractor Construction Management. And if you recall, this is where we have the ability to bring the contractor on board early, to work as a team with us, the owner, with the architect, and head off the errors and omissions that can happen, do happen regularly on projects, and to try and mitigate those, to also plan together as a team to create a better project. And I'm a believer in this delivery method, and you as a board have been highly supportive, and we've seen McCarver and Stewart as highly successful projects. And so normally we have to go to the state, called the Project Review Committee, the PRC, and get permission from the state to use the GCCM method, and we've done that 3 times now. Most recently, the state has recognized our experience and our success at delivering these projects with the GCCM delivery method, and they have granted us what's called an agency certification. It essentially makes us an extension of the state, where we can self-authorize our projects. Essentially now, we have an internal process that is state approved that we will come to you, the board, for consideration. And it would allow us on any of our future projects over the next 3 years to make a determine in-house whether it's a GCCM or a design bid build project. So that's a great step in the right direction for us, and we're excited to share more with you about that as we move forward. I do want to say that it's not a carte blanche. We're just going to do every project GCCM. Not every project is necessarily appropriate, nor does it meet RCW 3910. But we do have that opportunity to internally vet each project and make a determination and come to you with a recommendation for your consideration. So we've talked about yesterday and today. I want to talk about tomorrow, the future. So for yesterday, we're still completing the 2013 bond projects. We're coming to you, as Steve mentioned, on February 25th as a direct result of your request to be involved early. And so we've hit the end of what we call programming, that conceptual design, and McGranahan Architects is working on Bernie and Grant. They're going to be with us to bring to you 2 or 3 different concepts on both schools to take a look at, react to. There's a peer review going on over the next couple of weeks, And the design advisory committees are seeing these concepts as well, so it's time for you to be able to see those concepts as well and react. And so we're excited to see what your thoughts are related to those designs. We're also developing, in conjunction with several firms, a new building guidebook. We have instructional facilitators like Emily Bannon and Ryan Booth who work with the schools during that first year after construction so that teachers understand the design intent of the building and how to use the technology and the furnishings and so on. But staff changes over time, and we've realized the need to have a digital resource that is a living document over time that tells the story, so that people will understand over time how to use that building, even if they haven't been around when Booth and Emily were there. And so we're excited to move that initiative forward and have that available for after the new construction projects are finished. And then I want to talk to you about taking stock. And I really appreciated what maintenance had to say about preventative maintenance and being able to dig deep into our building major systems and understand them better. And so to do that, we feel that one of the next steps that we'll bring to you for consideration is a deep dive in called a facility condition assessment. So each year, we're required to do a study and survey through OSPI. We come to you every year with a report at the end of March usually for the Asset Preservation Program, which takes all of the new schools after 1993 and reports on conditions of the major building systems, the roofing, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and so on. We want to expand that and recommend that we put out an RFP that will bring to us a consultant who would come in and do a deep dive and give us long-term deferred maintenance recommendations, attaching to that costs 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out. So we really understand what are the major building systems that are going to go in all of our facilities that we need to be thinking about in long term. And we had talked about the 30-year plan from 1984, 1983. We're at the end of that. So it's likely time for us to draft a new plan and use that type of facility condition assessment to drive the conversation with stakeholders in the community about what's next. And so we'll be coming to you also in the coming months for consideration of what that process could look like.
I would add just a couple of things that we have a board policy that requires us to maintain a 10-year plan, which expires in a year. And so we're going to be looking to provide recommendations to you for considering, this deep dive that Rob talks about is not only going to populate and let the maintenance and operations team understand where all the building systems are in a life cycle cost analysis perspective to understand when capital replacement is going to be needed, but also to be the foundation for, in 1983 we had a facilities advisory committee.
Yes.
In 1983, and I'm not sure if we're going to call it that again, but it just rolls off your tongue. That was a deep dive community-wide effort to look at all of our facilities and understand where we are physically and educationally, and to map out the next 30 years of facility replacement and upgrades. And so we're going to be looking to that deep dive assessment to really give us the collateral to understand where the buildings are, not just from where's the failing roof, but from an educational adequacy component, to really understand where every site is and to give us the tools to make good decisions for the next 10 years and the next 20 years and hopefully 30. It's pretty amazing that the 1983 bond really was fulfilled with the 2013 bond campaign, and that it actually foresaw the needs into now. But we can, going around the room, we could probably identify a half a dozen or a dozen sites that we could go to today if we had the dollars to upgrade and improve. And so this will be, the next 30 years of planning for us to continue this vision of improvement and replacement in Tacoma.
One last word. I can't sit here and not do a shout out to the team who has taken on this incredible amount of work. They have been a phenomenal team, hard workers, smart people, good hearts, doing amazing work. So questions?
Director Winskill.
I was on that committee in 1982-83. We met every week for 18 months. I was on the middle school or the junior high subcommittee at the time. But when I look at the plan going forward, I mean, we still have several schools that haven't been touched. That's Lowell, Bryant, Skyline. I think that kind of play. I can't think of any other right now.
Those are the top three of our list too.
Yeah. So those have, certainly we have to vote on, have the citizens vote on replacing those schools. And then there's some that were, I didn't really care for the design to begin with. 1983, 84, when we were forced to close some of our schools and do them quickly because of the earthquake damage. You know, I think some of those could be probably replaced about now or re-upped. But so when I looked at McCarver and the 80,000 square feet, I mean, it is remarkable that we stayed within budget. But I think we always, I mean, didn't we always budget for that size of a school? Because we aren't going to chop off a certain portion of the school, correct?
I can take a stab at that.
Sure.
So the original program was the traditional 63,000 square foot elementary, and so we were looking at, could we not improve the lower floor and fit everything on the second and the middle floor and the upper floor and get back to that 450 student capacity, 60,000-ish square foot facility. But when we got into the design, the heart of that school with the library and the gymnasium that's middle school sized, we couldn't really move the walls and change the culture and history of that facility in such a dramatic way to realize those space savings. And so we were, I think, obliged to honor that history and bring the library and the theater back and save the gym in its full size. It's one of the highest use community assets in that area for gymnasium space, and so it's got a middle school to high school sized wood floored gym. And then the cafeteria is phenomenal. And so there were just areas that we thought we were maybe hopeful in being able to make more efficient, but at the cost of sacrificing some of the historic pieces we couldn't.
Just to add, that's a great example of why there's a need for a facilities condition assessment, a comprehensive, as they're pitching tonight or will be bringing to you at a later date for you to consider, is this really deep dive. And if Director Vial was here, I would share that with all of you who have asked us to use data to drive decisions. That's what this is. This isn't any more of, in the past, many school districts, and because we didn't have the data, we'd say, so what does everybody want? What does everybody want? What is the next thing that we need? And this gives us data to say what will last, what can be repurposed, what can be maintained, and so that if there is a need or you choose to go out for a bond in the future, you will be able to better predict the amount needed, the scope needed, what can be maintained, and that's going to save taxpayers more money in the future. It's going to be critical that we have that data for that planning. That long-range master planning is also a community-wide effort. You've charged us to build partnerships. What do they need from our schools as we consider these buildings? Which all that information will help drive future decisions and ultimately reduce redundancy and improve our efficiency.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I mean, McCarver, I love that big gym, and I love the community work. I like the basement being transformed into something that's not a dungeon like it was before, so that's great. I know I had something else I was going to say or ask about, but I'll wait, and maybe I'll think of it, and maybe I won't. So go on to someone else.
Vice President Cobb, did you have comments or questions?
Just one question. Will one of the outcomes of doing the full facilities condition assessment be a good quantification of the deferred maintenance we have out there? Or is that already represented in some of the work orders that are current, or where, I don't know, you don't have to go into that much, but I just want to know.
We do have, there are plenty of systems that we've gotten a handle on in terms of PCB containing transformers and other areas that we know we need to replace in preventative maintenance. The maintenance team has done a good job of populating that. So when you see there's 3,000 work orders open, A lot of those are preventative maintenance pieces. But yeah, this is going to give us some pretty definitive information with life cycle cost analysis and rough order magnitude cost estimates to
That's the
really
biggest
understand
difference.
so the assessments we've been doing as required by OSPI each year on the asset preservation is really a scoring, a facility condition assessment that's based on a numerical score, but for numbers that are lower for subcategories that are deficient, you just still leave the score. We don't actually go through and engineer a fix or figure out where that boiler is in its life cycle. Is it 10 years in on a 15-year boiler? That's the kind of information that we're going to be looking at to understand where all the systems are at.
And it's important to understand the human element. When I send a staff person out to go and look at the 22 schools that need to be reported on for asset preservation program, there's a scoring rubric and there are descriptors of what you should be looking for in systems, but they're somewhat subjective in nature, and they're scoring excellent, good, and so on. And so this deep dive, I mean, that scratches the surface really. This deep dive goes into what Steve was talking about, giving you a real understanding of years that a system is going to last, the cost that it's going to be, escalating that cost over time. So it gives us a lot better data to drive the decisions moving forward.
Well, some of the data that you're starting to generate to help us analyze whether, based on the maintenance, the ongoing maintenance that we're doing, if we're hitting those estimates for the life cycles of those different systems. I don't know if you already know that now, and if, like you said, like a 20-year roof, is it getting to that? Right. Or do you have that data now, or is this some of what we can start to get at?
Not yet. The conversation around the maintenance operations team has been, can we start barcoding all of the equipment so we can track each and every unit? And that when the one thing that I think that they have succeeded in is understanding, okay, we just had a pump failure that's a 10-year-old pump at Edison. We know Manitou Park has the same pumps, same vintage, and so they're tracking that and looking across site to site to understand we have a Cleaver Brooks boiler here that's of the same vintage. What should we be doing to understand as we're losing this? And that goes to the turf fields, that goes to the roofing systems, and so they are starting to look at that, kind of connecting the dots, comprehensive view.
Director Cobb, you asked a question too of the maintenance team about how is the planning and construction, the new buildings impacting their world. And you know, a couple of things that we've done that are really not about planning and construction, that are really about maintenance and operations. One is called Multivista. When we're building a building now, we have a company that comes in and takes pictures of everything, and I mean everything, as that building goes up. So in the future, what happens is a maintenance staff person can go in now, they can click on an interactive as-built drawing, and they can see into the wall and know exactly what's there. That sort of thing. The other thing that we've done is digitized all of our as-built drawings and our O&M manuals. So now it's a searchable database in SkySite where they can go and find everything quickly. So we've tried to create some help with systems that's going to make their work more efficient as well.
I feel like I'm channeling Director Bial, and maybe she's watching, maybe she's not. But there's also a connection to the budgeting for priorities process with this data that allows us to make more informed decisions, and the team will be able to bring small bits, if you will, when we have this data that we can move forward with, and we don't have to wait till there's a big always bond to move. And this data will allow us to provide greater service in real time.
Cool. Thanks.
Director Hines?
Thank you. Well, let me start with the financial summary dashboard. I don't know if it's just because I've harped on it so much, or you read my mind, or a combination thereof, but that's exactly what I was looking for. So, and the first time that I opened up a report and read it, there were harps and angels singing, because that's exactly, I think, so thank you for that. I think that that's a tool that we'll all be able to use. And I wonder if, because the question about, well, great, we're within 1%, what's the industry standard or best practice? If we could footnote that as we push that out publicly for context, to say, hey, here's the industry. So if the 2% is the industry best standard or best practice, and we're at 1%, we're doing a pretty darn good job. And that is a way to tell our story, because I think it's commendable, in that the ability to predict in this construction market with that almost laser-like precision is pretty impressive. With respect to the GCCM process and our ability now to be self-governing, are we going to have a rubric or some sort of what's the QA/QC on that, so that we stay disciplined to when we should use it and when we shouldn't?
So a quick comment on your first comment, if I may. We are finding that some projects are, I mean, it is a moving target for prediction, but we're finding that we're over on some, under on others in terms of our anticipated bottom line when we finish. So right now I'm feeling like, it's going to be about a wash with the projects we currently have in place. So that's a win, I feel. About GCCM, we went in front of the project review committee and we put together a detailed process and flow chart about how decisions would be made, and we want to bring that to you for your consideration and approval. It is.
Can I add that?
Yeah.
It mirrors the state's review process, and I think what we're talking about doing is, at a minimum, we're mirroring the state requirements, but we're going to propose a little more intervention with you guys in terms of defining need and understanding when it's appropriate. And so you'll see a process that we're going to propose to you that takes the state level and adapts it to the way we work with you.
And
for your consideration.
Perhaps we could look for, I just like that third party to help keep us objective.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a way for us to use professionals from other districts or in the industry, citizens, so that we're getting some objective input, I think that could be helpful for us to stay disciplined on when we should use it and when we shouldn't use it. But I think it's impressive that the state has enough confidence in the good work that you've done to give us the latitude to self-determine. The last question I have is separate but related, and there's a lot of conversation right now in the legislature about seismic retrofitting of schools, and in the interest of time, particularly since the #1 ranked Gonzaga Bulldogs are playing right now, I won't ask for a long answer on this, but to foreshadow future conversation around where are we with seismic retrofitting and what are the conditions of our buildings, how do we take that into consideration for new construction and for investment of existing infrastructure with bond dollars or other funding sources. Because when I see what's being debated in the legislature, there's a lot of interest in those buildings meeting code. There's no money for those buildings to meet code. So then how do we prioritize? And when we think about a 30-year plan, in 1984, Director Winskill referenced the damage in some of the buildings from earthquakes. So was that taken into consideration in that 30-year plan, how to account for natural hazards like earthquakes?
I can say that, for example, in McCarver and Stewart being historical renovations, micropiling and additional shear walling was a major part of the structural upgrades were a major part of those projects. Same would have been true for Stadium in the past.
And Washington too.
Washington,
yeah.
And Washington as well.
We exceed structural code requirements on all our projects, but we haven't gotten to the level, and maybe this is a topic if you're interested to come back to you, about designating neighborhood safe zones where we do maybe upgrade and go well beyond code for a few gyms here and there, and that might be a conversation I would recommend to have with Pierce County Department of Emergency Management and talk about.
I could arrange that meeting.
That's something that we've been thinking about on our side since I got here, because the conversation isn't happening.
Yeah.
And so to understand where the county and city are with their kind of magnet sites for safe zones would be a really interesting conversation to participate in.
And I know the city of Seattle is leading the charge on unreinforced masonry and having that conversation in Olympia, which inevitably leads to schools. So
yes.
I think that would be a timely conversation.
And I think the deep dive assessment that Rob was discussing would also start analyzing on our properties like SOTA 1950, really understanding where risk and liability are with the building systems we have for unreinforced masonry or load-bearing masonry buildings.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I also want to say that I think that the deep dive facilities assessment seems like a no-brainer in terms of a data-driven world where you can have actual assessments for long-term plannings and budget alignments. My only concern is the interjections of Mr. Garcia, my thoughts are that if you keep interjecting, there must be some problem that you're anticipating to overcome, because otherwise it seems pretty evident that it's going to be an extraordinary tool for us from the board members present as well. Was there something that you were looking out for?
No, we just wanted to use this as an opportunity to really, I think Rob mentioned this really go into some of the nuts and bolts, because we don't always get this gift of time to talk about what are the pros and cons. And so that when we get to design and we get to having to make decisions that may come to you at a faster rate, we have a place to build upon in that conversation. And
Sure.
so we think this is a tremendous asset. There will be an investment to it. We think we can handle that investment, and we're excited to do that. We also recognize that you like data and that you like strategic planning and you like budgeting for priorities, because those are your initiatives as a board. And so we believe that you should hear from us that we're listening to you and putting those things in action.
Well, I'm glad that I was hearing was enthusiasm. We'll look forward to seeing what those cost assessments are. I think, again, that it's a no-brainer in this environment that we can look 30 years out and have real data to make good decisions, or great decisions as the case may be. I wanted to point out how much I value the equity quotient that you put on construction dollars. I know that that's something that came out of probably my continued pestering in relationship to making sure that there was equity between schools across the district in terms of the finishes and the quality of environments. So I do value that you made that present in all of this. I also have to acknowledge that when you mentioned barcoding, the entire M&O team behind you smiled and nodded. I don't have any further questions. I appreciate your work very much.
I would just add that the February 25th charrette, it is 2 to 4 hours, depending on how it goes on a Saturday. But the one really great thing will be not only the interaction with the cabinet to really understand the visions we're working with, and to hear from you guys feedback on where we're going, but it will be at Stewart Middle School, which will be our new East Side flagship middle school that we cannot wait for you guys to see with your own eyes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about Stewart? Is there going to be any opportunity for tours by community leaders or anything in advance of its opening?
We're anticipating our temporary certificate, or maybe even our permanent certificate of occupancy in the next week.
Oh, excellent.
So we will
I
be
think
lining up opportunities. We've been kind of waiting for that moment so that we don't have to gear everybody up with hard hats, gloves, goggles, all the protective personal equipment.
Excellent.
So as soon as we get that, we'll be opening the doors and inviting you in.
Great, thank you. I think that there's probably some other community leaders that we would each like to invite as well. So
It'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. Moving on to board comments and reports. We'll start with Student Representative Olson. Great, thank you. No report. Director Hines.
Thank you. So I had opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. for the National School Board Association Advocacy Institute. Interesting time to be in D.C. with everything that's going on. We had a great showing from the Washington State group, about 30 of us statewide, north, south, east, west, urban, rural, and we met with Congressman Smith, Congressman Kilmer, Senator Cantwell, and Senator Murray's lead aide on K-12 education. And during those conversations, I had a chance to highlight the good CTE work that's going on in Tacoma, trying to get the Perkins Career and Technical Education reauthorized, and they were looking for examples. And I think we made a pretty compelling business case to include our youth apprenticeship program. It was exciting to hear what our colleagues across the state are doing. So as we've talked about career and college ready in year 13, there's so many great opportunities for kids in Washington State, and it's when we think about trying to create that 21st educational model, sometimes we feel like we're on an island, and I think those sorts of conferences are good because you get to interact with colleagues and understand we're facing many of the same challenges, but we're also aligned with many of the same solutions. They may be doing it a different way. They may be a little bit ahead of us or a little bit behind us, but I think the value in sharing that. And then the members of Congress were hungry for solutions. There's a lot of rhetoric around what's wrong with public schools, And they were very appreciative to hear the collective what's going right in public schools in Tacoma with all that we've been able to accomplish as a community in our district over the last several years. People have the perception of what's going on in Tacoma as a city and as a school district has changed, and we're recognized as a leader. So it was very, I feel reinvigorated to come back and to do the work. The other piece is to give credit to what's going on with our youth sports program. So we've talked as a board about trying to increase participation opportunities, and we're all about removing barriers, and we know cost barriers and transportation barriers can keep kids from playing in sports. And there's been good work with Metro Parks and the Boys and Girls Club and YMCA with schools to get more kids to play. And I heard a statistic. I'm coaching my son's 4th grade basketball team, and in that league last year they had 800 kids that were playing basketball. This year they have over 1,600. So when you think about that, what that means for kids and families and the opportunity to play and to play at their local school, so we have more school-based teams, so you don't have to travel, you don't have to pay AAU expenses or other high costs. You pay a registration fee. That consortium has done a great job of putting together scholarships, so kids that might not be able to afford it are still able to play. I just think it's tremendous, and that is the leadership of our superintendent and our deputy superintendent, those great partnerships with those other organizations, and it means these kids that might otherwise have the opportunity are getting a chance to play, which is what it's all about.
Great, thank you. Director Winskill.
The only comment I have is I'd like to look into that, the garden situation. So if other districts are able to do it, what are the barriers that we have? Why do we not do it? And how can we make it work for Tacoma?
Great, thank you. Vice President Cobb.
I'll echo that comment. I want to know more about gardens and how we can understand the dynamics and make it work. I also wanted to say that I've been out for a while. I had back surgery, but I'm feeling a lot better. But in that time, I had a lot of time to be on Facebook and to catch up with what's going on with the district, all the videos that are shared. And I saw a post by our an elected official in the community, Julie Anderson, who was spending some time at Lister with the Read to Me program. And I was really struck by her noticing some signs that are hanging in a classroom, and they're the messages that those first graders are getting: be a leader to yourself first, speak so you can be heard, know what's going on around you, have conversations, create a plan and make a decision, be flexible, be creative, always say please and thank you. And I just think that for little ones, especially for us all big ones too, those are just great values for those kids to hear and great messages for them. And they're fun and colorful. I would just love to see these everywhere. Maybe they are everywhere and I just haven't seen them, but I just think they're great values to share early as possible and to keep reinforcing just those ideas about confidence and speaking up, knowing what's going around you, be kind. I just think it's a great culture that we're trying to build, and the more that community members like this can see this and be a part of it, I think we're just doing the right thing. So it just made me happy.
Fantastic. I'm also going to make some comments on community gardens. I met with General Counsel Renee Trugrad yesterday as part of an onboarding one-on-one and discussed clarity of this policy as something that I wanted us to look into, simply because we do have a policy that's not actually very complex, but there's a lot of complexity into the way it's been communicated throughout the district. I'm now hearing also from my peers about what does it take to do a district-wide sustainable garden program. I wouldn't mind reviewing information on that. I want us to be careful that we're not directing staff to go far off of our existing goals in terms of the type of effort it could be to achieve a comprehensive district coordinated program versus a school by school community program that makes sure that the policy helps people find their way to yes and not otherwise. So if there's any comments on that, I think it would be good to have. Last week I got to go to the Wainwright opening, and the Wainwright community is pretty darn excited about their new building. The people that I spoke to and the community members that I ran into were excited about our innovation. I had a teacher from Whittier actually stop me and say, We were really cramped in that building, but we got to build community and family, and we're so grateful to the innovation and the direction of this board and this district's leadership and the development of both of those two buildings. So I wanted to pass that on because it's always great to hear basically thank yous. I wanted to make some comments about our resolution in general. I was at, oh, actually, not yet. We have a resolution from the city of Tacoma that I was at the city council meeting to receive on Tuesday in relationship to the Whole Child Month. Because of the length of time, I will look to my peers to see if you would like me to read this into the record or simply pass it around. Okay, I'm seeing acknowledgement of passing it around. It's a beautiful certificate. We're tremendously grateful to the partnership that the city of Tacoma does with us to make sure that we can meet not just the Whole Child Initiative, but also collaborate with Whole People initiatives throughout our city. While I was there, they were also considering their resolution to create a task force regarding the issues of immigration and refugees on top of their Welcoming Cities program. And I heard many constituents speak that are potentially affected, as well as representative of community organizations that do represent people who could be affected by the issues at hand. And what I heard people say are things like, we're getting phone calls from kids who are afraid to go to school. And so for me, a lot of our resolution is simply a matter of providing assurance. I know that Director Hines clarified that all we were doing is restating that we were going to follow the law, but I think the assurance that we're also providing with that to our communities, that we will in fact do that in a time of uncertainty is tremendous. We never want our children to be, or our families to be afraid to come to school. That's a terrible concept in the United States of America. So I wanted to clarify that.
Well, and for me to clarify, I was
Sure.
not stating that all we're doing is following the
Oh,
law. I wanted to let people know that it is absolutely the right thing to do as human beings. And
Forgive
for
me,
those
I
that
didn't-
might think we were taking liberty, it's also the law.
I didn't mean to minimize it. I
Okay.
meant to clarify it,
Okay.
that reiteration. And I stand with you with the same intent, doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Is the standard we've set as peers and as a district, and it's what I anticipate we'll continue to do as a district and as a whole community. Pardon me as I glance through my notes. Those were the primary things that I wanted to note, I believe, and you've received the City of Tacoma resolution. So with that, my board report has ended. Are there any other comments? Okay, moving on to the announcement of future board meetings. Then February 2017, on Thursday, February 9th, 6 p.m. will be our regular business meeting. On Thursday, February 16th at 6 p.m., we'll have a study session on equity and achievement. On Thursday, February 23rd at 6 p.m., we'll have a regular business meeting. I believe we'll also have a retreat and a study session on February 24th, Saturday, the 25th, for 4 hours from 9 to 12. Pardon me, I'm 8 to 12. To go over the construction of 2 different buildings, as well as to go over board self-evaluations and goals. We'll look forward to spending that time, and the place is to be determined, but we hope to have an exciting location. That being said, there is no executive session tonight, and seeing no further business, I will call this meeting adjourned.